Yeah, I'm starting to realize, like, I remember my dad, of course, he was older, complaining about this stuff hurting all the time. Not complaining, but let me back up. He never complained. He mentioned it. And I remember thinking, man, it's terrible when you get older.
Yeah.
Like all this, and as I get older, like, this random shit happens and it hurts. And it's like, man, why is that? Like, my problem is I need to start really working out more. I need to start,
Well, that was a fucking thing. I was getting back into it and I was feeling pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And these damn ab rollers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was extended all the way out and then whoa, I could just feel it.
Yeah. There's this thing called the reverse hyper. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So you kind of lay over this table, right? And the edge of the table is in your kind of hip crease. And then you put your legs in these like straps, and then the straps are connected to a lever that you put weight on. So basically you're picking your legs up behind you. So it'd be like, you bend over on a table and then you straighten your legs out like you're doing a Superman pose. Huh. So the movement is your lower back is picking up weight.
Oh, yeah.
And they talk about that being the best thing for your
I can see that.
Like your whole back. It strengthens that because you don't do a lot of other things that strengthen that section of your lower back. Like that particular movement you don't really do. But that section gets weakened by sitting down a lot, in the car a lot, different things. And that and I used that for a while. I didn't use it long enough to really notice any big differences, but
I don't know if it's the weakness in my front or my back.
Yeah.
I built up so much tolerance and muscle through surfing many different years.
Yeah.
Normally whenever I do those, whatever you call them, reverse, crunch, I don't know what you call them. It's pretty, I mean, it seems strong, whatever that is, but I don't know. I heard it actually surfing on my 50th birthday. Well, before that, then I just kept surfing.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that, the end of January?
Mm-hmm.
And then then I heard it again. So something's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
performance, man, messes up your day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're all dialed in, like I'll see you sometimes. You're like, yeah, I'm feeling damn good, or all dialed in and working out. And when you're feeling that way, it feels like you're unbeatable.
100%. Right? Yeah, and that's the thing is like I know that at a really deep level.
Feeling. Yeah.
But then I go, it's been 3 weeks since I've picked up a weight. But I know that I'm better and I feel better. Everything's better if I consistently do something.
Yeah.
But then I'll go on a 3-week stretch, where I don't do anything because I'm focusing on other stuff. I've got a lot of things now that we're trying to push down the road and get done. And we got this house we're buying and as an investment and there's just a lot of shiny objects and things that need to get done that I've reprioritized my fitness. Now my diet's still perfect, dialed in, which is having a great effect, but the fitness part of it, I too easily let other things get to be a higher priority. And it's
but you're not sitting around watching TV.
No.
Right?
No.
So you're doing something.
No.
You're out, you're outside.
But to your point, I know the recipe of like being like fucking dialed in. I know what it takes.
Yeah.
So then why don't I do it consistently? There's no excuse. It's other than I'm putting other priorities ahead of it,
I think it's, well, for me anyway, I don't believe there's a 100% consistency.
Yeah.
Right. I always have an ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I either get tired of it because, I feel great. But I just want to change. Right. And then I'll just fluff off and get backed into some laziness or have my attention go somewhere else. And then I'll be like, damn, I don't feel great anymore. I'm hurting. I'm achy.
Yeah.
And then I'll get back into it. So
yeah,
whatever it is, I don't know. I mean, that mental clarity and that understanding of how you perform, what makes you perform best, it's in there and you know how to achieve it. And I think, whether it happens on a day-to-day basis, every day, probably not achievable.
Yeah.
But you know how to get it back there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important though.
Well, it's important to have fundamentals that, and they do change. There's seasons, right? You go, there's times where you're sprinting towards things. There's times when it's relatively calm and you can be on a routine, but then there's also times where it's like, man, I gotta focus on these few things to move the needle. And I'm going to do it at the, while sacrificing other things. That, that's the whole, that people talk about balance. And I remember, early on thinking, man, I need to balance. Well, that's an illusion if you're really trying to achieve something, right? There's some times where I'm not going to be able to balance my time where I'm giving equal attention to my wife or my family. But then other times I will be able to, I'll overcompensate and be able to spend more time with the family. You know what I mean? Saying you're going to split up your time equally amongst everything, you could do that, but it's unsustainable, I think. And also, it's not realistic if you're chasing down big things,
There is balance, there's sense of awareness, there's knowing when you fucked up and when you have to stop and really focus on whatever it is, that you were imbalanced on. There's all those, but I think that sense of awareness is the key component that will keep us balanced, right? Because you're always kind of, or I am anyway, I'm always moving in between whatever it is and pushing in any direction, but I'll know if my family's upset. Like I'll know if I haven't been there or if I'm not there, if I'm not present.
Yeah.
Right. And I know the stare. Or I know, employees, if they feel my attention is spread too thin. So that sense of awareness is real important. And if you ignore that, then you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. True. Well, what else? What are you thinking about now? What's on the mind?
Oh man. I think, I think this year's is well, you mentioned balance, and I think it is a steady flow of problem solving us to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was driving here this morning thinking, man, what's on my mind? What am I? And for better, for worse, that there was really just a blank. It's kind of funny to say that because we've got so much going on.
Yeah.
But I realized while I was walking in the door, I was like, well, I think that blank means that I am trying to balance the decisions, balance the flow of the office, balance work coming in, balance the growth. So there's not one that's weighing heavier for instance. And, and so I think it is, when we talk about balance, it's trying to weigh the odds every day and make sure the decisions are flowing equally, I'm not losing sight.
Yeah.
And like there's these different levers that I look at every day, and my day is never, I get to work on one project. Like that's probably, that's the same with you. But it's just, it's floating through the office and all the things that we're doing just to make sure that we're moving upward in a slow direction, because that's kind of where we are right now, versus like falling down in any direction.
Yeah.
And one day it could be finances, one day it could be problem solving on any sort of project. One day it does have my head in a particular project that I'm feel like we're in a pinch on, and then one day it's taking off and making sure I'm taking care of myself. Like yesterday, I took off and went to the nursery because I still got it in my mind, like the plant nursery, because I didn't get to do my shit that I did last weekend because I hurt my back.
Yeah.
So
is that hard for you to do every once in a while, just to kind of check out?
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't check out even when I sleep.
Yeah.
I feel like when I sleep, I'm still dreaming about all the shit that I have to do.
Yeah.
But I think I'm sleeping. I even started wearing my watch.
Yeah.
You know, do you do that? Or you?
I haven't done it lately, but you can check the quality of your sleep.
Yeah. There was a month because I think it's weird to wear an attachment when you sleep, but
yeah.
At any rate, I was like, well, I guess I am sleeping, but I didn't feel like it. You know, I'm still dreaming about all the things that I'm having to do.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just an active mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, absolutely.
What about you? What do you got?
Yeah, a lot going on. You know, since we're on the theme of balance, I do feel like I'm able to lately balance my attention across several different things, more so than jumping in and firefighting something here and jumping in and firefighting something over there. I mean, I'm from a high level with the company now. I'm able to be hands off on a lot of stuff and be more kind of intentional. You know, I've got, the team that we've built up now is probably the best team that I've ever been involved with. And, the work for me over the last few months has been, okay, well, get those people in place, get them trained up, and then now trust them, right? Trust them with doing what they're supposed to do and knowing that there's going to be mistakes. And then if there's a mistake, you coach them on it. But I'm there now. It feels good. It's at the same time, it feels good. It feels scary because it's like, okay, this thing's, there's things out there happening now that I can't even be a part of. You know what I mean? Like, there's decisions being made, there's money being spent, there's activities going on that I can't have anything to do with now, right? So I got to trust.
Well, the machine's too big.
It's getting bigger.
Yeah.
And I've got to trust that the people and the processes and all that are in place are going to work, but it feels good at the same time because now I can sit back and watch and I can say, okay, well, I've got to tweak this little thing here. So I got this little thing over here I'm going to tweak.
Yeah. That's a real interesting perspective because I was sitting around there, I think yesterday. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, around 3:00, I thought, what the hell am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And it was a real similar feeling because I'm used to being in the weeds and I'm used to being in projects. And if you're ground up, like somewhat like what you and I are, you're used to doing a little bit of everything and having your day so thick that you just can't get to the next thing. And that still feels real valid in some days and most days because your to-do list is it's infinite.
Well, there's a comfort in being in the weeds to some extent, right? Because you got control.
Yeah.
If you're in the weeds and you're involved in something, and you've got control over that, and that feels good to me anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit.
Well, you're problem solving them, and you can get to the end of that problem with a solution.
Yeah. We know a lot of your anxiety and stress comes from, worrying about a future state that you think you can't do anything about, right? So, the cure for anxiety or the cure for stress, and a lot of times is to create action. It's like to get involved and because then, good or bad, whatever, at least you're involved and you think you got some level of control over it, and it makes it less stressful. But you can't build a business like that. You can't scale a business like that. You've got to step back. You got to lose control of certain things. You've got to hand over control of certain things, and then like I like to think about, I wanted to get to the point where I've got this machine and it's somewhat self-propelling. It's doing its own thing, and now I get to feed it. I can feed it, and I can tweak certain things to allow it to keep growing and cross over different thresholds. And we're at that now. We're starting to get a lot of opportunities come in. So a lot of the business development stuff we've been doing is starting to kind of bear fruit.
So the marketing is helping.
You bit.
You feel
that I'm starting to see a little bit. Not that we're at, I don't have the magic bullet yet, but we're starting to get some good feedback. We've got a prospect that we're going to go out on Monday and meet in Atlanta. It was last minute. We had the opportunity to go sit down in front of them. We just booked the flights yesterday. We're going to go sit down in front of them. It's a concept that we've known about for a while that I think fits really well into our capabilities. And they had seen some of our stuff and already thought that they thought there might be a good fit. So they were very welcoming for us to fly out there and spend some time with us. Right. So, and so we're seeing a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Right. So that feels good. Because the other side of growing a business, as you know, is now it's getting big enough that you've got to feed it, right? You got to go out and find to bring stuff in so that you can continue that momentum.
Yeah.
So I'm in that position now too, where it's like, man, I got a lot of great people. We got a lot of overhead.
Yep.
And so I got to go hunt.
Yeah.
And feed the machine.
Yeah. Well, we just hired. We just brought on board our 4th principal.
Okay.
Right. And it's real new for us. Or for me anyway, because I've always hired primarily young, thinking that, well, mostly there's more affordability there.
Yeah.
But the coaching up is very difficult. Right. So I was always in projects, always in and out, knew every detail of every project in front of the client. So there was a level of control and activity that was relentless in a way, but gratifying at the same degree because there was an end, right? To your point.
Yeah.
But now we've grown and our strategy has changed because that's very tiring, right? And understanding that you've got to have seniority and you've got to have a hierarchy and you have to relinquish some of the decision making, right? Because you can't get to it all.
Yeah.
If you have 25, 30 projects at any scale, at any phase, you can't get to it all. And then eventually shit's going to fall down and no one's going to come anymore.
Yeah.
So our senior leadership is all of a sudden balanced equally with our younger staff. And I've never had that before. Right. And so it is interesting because my overhead is more than we've ever had right now, which is okay, but it allows me, I think, to go out and chase. And that's the daunting part, right? Because there's there's not really like a book. There's not a guidebook.
Yeah.
There's no pathway. And so you're setting up those, like what you're doing, you're setting up those cues and that marketing, and you're trying to generate a particular line in order to feed the machine in a way that is gratifying to everyone. So that inevitably is our responsibility now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we're still working on processes and documenting things. I don't think that ever stops, but making a big push on the HR front to, we're really close to implementing health insurance and 401k, which was one of our big goals this year. We're at the point now where we want to do that, but as again, the overhead gets bigger, with the staff and all the other things. It's like, man, we're, just 3 years ago, I can remember what our monthly burden was, which was today, nothing. It's like,
absolutely.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, well, and I get comfort too, cause I we track our cash really, really close. And that's what, for me, I've got to go back and I'll have these moments where I'll wake up in the middle of the night going, holy shit. Our monthly nut is, whatever it is. And I'm like, and I start trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, oh damn, I don't know that this is going to work in like 2 or 3 months. And then that catastrophe fantasy starts happening. I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to have to let people go. Like, but then I have to, and I've done this before a couple times at like 2 a.m, where I get up and I go open my laptop up and I go to our financial stuff and I'm like, oh no, okay. The math on the spreadsheet makes sense.
Yeah.
That's more reliable than my brain is at, 1 a.m. So I've got to rely on that, because otherwise I start freaking myself out going
projections.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did also spend the last 3 months at redoing our like our spreadsheets. Like we'll do it in 3 or 4 different directions.
Yeah.
Just to cross check one another.
Yeah.
And then Jed Duhan, he's our newest principal. He's 25 years in the industry, comes from another office, and I'm real interested in learning his method of how they used to forecast, right? So he's plugged in on a different aspect, doing the same thing, almost double checking our work, right? Which I'm real interested in. So you have to have a level of trust there, and that you set it up just right. Like, and then, don't go down the hole of misery and default.
Yeah. But no, things are good. It's like, I was thinking last night that this is where I wanted to get to several years ago. I wanted to get back to this spot. 'Cause, I had this before with another company where, that particular company was not, didn't have anywhere near the foundation that Citadel does now. I mean, I'm surprised that we went as long as we did back then, doing things the way we were doing it. Nothing bad, nothing. It was a very weak foundation, right? Because there wasn't the principles and the policies and all that we have today, and I didn't have the same, really frankly, caliber of people that we do today. So it feels a lot better now, knowing, okay, man, I've got. At the same time, I feel like, man, we've got a lot of potential. Then now I've got even more responsibility to keep it going, because I want to keep this team engaged. And, see what we can do. So it's fun. I'm enjoying it. It's not as stressful nowadays as it has been. I feel like I've kind of gotten over a hump where I could be more intentional. And,
it seems like architecture, the business of architecture is pretty easy to understand in terms of formula. How do you grow? How do you, the pathway to growth, it seems probably fairly easy to imagine. But in terms of like the GC, general contractor world, your overhead could be relatively small and still have large capacity of projects under your belt, or how does that formula work?
Yeah, good question. The general contractor, and I'm probably not the right one to talk about financial models for this stuff, but what I've always used from an overhead standpoint, you can run it really lean, but then you run the risk of not having the proper attention on certain projects. We talked about gray areas before in business. Well, when it comes to projects, we try to make it really black and white. From when we look at a set of plans, we try to put a budget or a bid onto that set of plans, onto that project where we've captured everything. So theoretically, we've got a team, we've got everything set up to go and execute that project. And again, theoretically, you should, if you have a certain margin profit built in on that, you should be able to go on paper and execute and complete on time and on budget, right? But that never happens. That's not the world that we live in. We live in a world that's very dynamic. Even after your best efforts to plan and schedule and put the best team on the field to go do it, like shit's going to happen. It just always happens. It's just the nature of it, right? There's problems. And so we've got our internal team, whether it's our controller or project managers or superintendents, we have to have enough attention on these projects so we can minimize our risk, right? Because it's when we start a project, it's not about, hey, we're not trying to make more money, right? We're trying not to lose any money. Like our potential profit on that project typically never goes up after day one. It's always down, true. Right? So we're trying to protect that. Right. And how do we protect that? Well, you obviously a lot of planning on the front side, which takes people, and then during the project, It's the right oversight and involvement so that we're trying to mitigate any potential problems that would cost us money. So with all that being said, there's a certain size team that you've got to put in place for the amount of projects you have. And so, if you have 1 to 3 projects, one person can handle, right? And then if you start going above that, well, now you need, more people handling that. So our framework, when we think about superintendents, which is the ground level, and the project managers, which is, say, the office level, is, one project manager can manage 3 projects typically at a certain size. And then, when you get 2 PMs with, 4 to 6 superintendents, then you really need somebody managing those 2 PMs. So you start to build a hierarchy. And so, and then you start getting support staff, where again, it's like you want the people in each position to be able to have enough bandwidth to make the right decisions. And so sometimes that helps. Yeah. You gotta support them with different support staff.
I guess it's similar then, right? Because
but what we're tracking, with all that being said, at the highest level, we know that our overhead needs to be somewhere around 7% of sales.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the magic number for us. And then as we project higher volumes and all that, we know that, okay, well, if we can stay around that 7%, that would allow us to hire more people. So then our ability to grow and hire people is going to, as long as we're staying within that 7%, then we can be profitable and we can grow the company. Mm-hmm. So then it's not so much about how many people, it's about just, can we keep growing it in a way that we can stay within that 7% mark and, give promotions and increase salaries and hire new people and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what is there's a couple of things here. What's the end game? So let's say that, well, for you, in order to get to where you want to go, do you search for equally sized projects with bigger budgets so it allows you to make potentially more money? Or do you search for more projects? Like, how do you think about growth?
Yeah.
Like what is that limit that will allow you to really perform and excel and seek this revenue or this capacity that you want?
Yeah. So when I think about growth, like what I'm thinking about right now is, so we've got a couple different lines of our business, right? We've got the general contracting side, and then we've got the construction management, owner rep, due diligence, permitting line, right? And so you can almost look at our staff, it's kind of separated. You've got this one team that is managing this one side of the business, which is, again, is construction management, owner rep, phase 1, phase 2 services. So we're looking at growing that and maintaining that line of business, because that's just a fee-based business, and that's really clean and easy to manage and there's a lot less risk. So where we're at today is that business is managing, there's probably north of 20 projects right now that are under that umbrella, and that's a revenue driver also for the general contracting side, but it also keeps that team busy, and it's spinning off some cash and profit. So that's easy to build, to go out and we can manage any size project inside of that line of business, whether it's $1 million or it's $5 million, because the responsibilities are relatively the same. On a general contracting side, we're looking at bringing on projects 2 different ways. We're looking at stepping into bigger projects, but not going hard after bigger projects. So we would add, if like right now, our average project size is somewhere around, call it $700,000. We're trying to go and bring on the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, like, several of those to add on to the portfolio of other $500,000 to $700,000 projects. So, we're looking for the bigger opportunities, but we're doing that conservatively so that we know that we can take that on and handle it, because that bigger projects mean more working capital and all that. The other side of it is, we know that the $500,000 to $700,000 project, we can do those all day long. And we've got a team that we can scale up on those. So, you know, that's the 7 brew projects that we're doing. That looks like these other concepts that we're chasing down that we're going to start, you know, bidding more work with. We've got a Golden Chick restaurant that we just got the opportunity to go after in Houston. And that, again, that type of product fits really well with the team that we've built on the general contracting side. That's developing into this machine.
Yeah.
So then, and those kind of projects are easy to go hunt and find and validate and bring on, right? That's what we're doing. Monday, we're going to Atlanta to meet with a client that their projects are that type of a thing, right? It's the reoccurring, fast casual restaurant that has its ground up. They're probably $500,000 to $700,000, and they're going to build multiple ones. Like, we can chase that stuff down all day long, and that's the stuff. That's the project that if we keep a certain number of those coming in, that kind of just stokes the engine, right? It's just, and then the bigger projects are the ones that allow us to grow,
feed. Yeah,
you know, like that provides more profits. We're building our resume with the bigger ones, and that allows us to go after a little bit bigger, right? Again, it's all, there's a financial component that we have to track, because again, we've got to put a certain amount of money out on the job in the form of working capital. So you can't, there's a lot of companies that get way over their skis.
Yeah.
I mean, I know several companies that have been our size now and stepped out and sold like a $20 million project. We could do that as well, but the financial requirements of doing that would hurt the business.
Do you mean because that would focus all of your energy on that particular project, or staffing up in order to?
No, I mean, on every project, we've got to we have to put money out on the project. We have to buy materials sometimes. We have to pay deposits. The traditional contractor mode that everybody thinks is that you hire a subcontractor, they get paid on a net 30. We turn an invoice into the owner pays us, and then we pay the subcontractor. There is a lot of that, but there's also a lot of the groups that we work with. They need a 50% deposit.
Yeah.
So a 50% deposit on a $50,000 contract, that's easy. That's manageable. When you jump into a $20 million project, that $50,000 contract over here is probably a $500,000 contract over here that instead of putting $25K down, now we've got to put $250K down. Yeah. And so we've got to be in a position to do that. Otherwise, the project stalls and it doesn't work. Yeah. And again, I've seen a lot of contractors go and get a little overambitious, and they take on these big projects, and they don't have the working capital required to go do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's different.
So it's kind of a dance, Yeah. It's we chase down the bigger ones as we can, where we know that financially we can handle that and be successful with it. And then you keep, we're constantly building up our reserves and our cash position and investments so that we can financially go and handle bigger stuff.
Yeah. Is there a sweet spot? Is there a projection spreadsheet that you look at that relates to that in particular, in terms of, all right, this how we leverage ourselves financially in terms of the line of credit, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. This is a sweet spot, and then we, and I'm gonna stop here because I know this is going to be really comfortable, and we don't need any more or any less. But this is the level that we need to be at. Do you look at it in that regard, or do you look at it from a staffing perspective?
Yeah, it's both. As it relates to a bigger project, if we're looking at taking on a bigger project. So, I mean, I'll tell you. So, for example, we just recently with you, there was the 2 projects, one of which we're going to hopefully get locked in and we can start talking about it, which is a little bit bigger, multifamily project. Mm-hmm. There was the other project that we were trying to take on that we didn't get. That was, a little bit higher dollar value. So when we really started chasing those down, we look at our cash position amongst other stuff, and I went and we increased our line of credit. Yeah. And I was able, it was already due, the size of the company, our monthly volume and revenue. warranted that increase, but so it was easy to get, but we would need that, and the amount of money that we asked to raise it was based on what we saw coming up.
Yeah.
And so it's twofold. Yeah, we're looking at our line of credit, and then we're looking at, we keep a cash reserve on hand as well. So we felt confident that we could take on that dollar value of project on both of those based on the financial end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also knew that from a staffing position, we had bandwidth. That's the easier part. And so that's how we look at it. We know that for all the other projects that the $500,000 to $700,000, we know that there's a certain number of people that are involved in that. I know what my monthly burden is to manage that certain amount of people, and we know that that's a number every month.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a certain number of positive months of cash flow that we want to maintain. And if that number of months of positive cash flow starts to trend down, then we start looking at, okay, what does that mean? But knock on wood, we've been very consistent and successful over the last 2 years, continually to grow that.
Mm-hmm.
We're very, there's been a lot of decisions that we've had to make as it relates to our cash position. We've had a lot of opportunities to go out and buy more trucks or, spend money on these other software platforms. And, but we are trying to be very fiscally responsible so that we don't jump out there and I would always rather my dad told me something when I was 15 years old that I'll never forget. I didn't understand it back then, but he said, money looks better in the bank than it does in your driveway.
Yeah, very true.
And that was back when, all I gave a shit about was what kind of car I was going to get when I turned 16. And I was looking at these expensive cars, and he said that, and back then it's like, whatever, I still want that car. But now it's like having the cash readily available is way better than, for us anyway, and for me, than having a fleet of trucks or having the most expensive software. It's like, I would rather have the cash to be able to do certain things and weather storms that are inevitably going to happen.
That I was thinking about another question, because we're often faced with it as well. And there's a level of it's understanding who your competitors are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of there's this playing field that you imagine yourself in, and talking about either it's the fleet of trucks, or it's the cash in the bank, or it's the office you live in, or it's the clothes that you wear. Like there's this awareness of, well, I'm either growing up, not necessarily, or I'm trying to perform at this particular level that is going to allow me to compete with these other offices, or these folks that I just keep coming up against. Right. So it's almost a falsification of stepping up in a realm that perhaps increases your overhead.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so do you guys face that in some aspect? Because I think as architects we do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great question, right? I'll answer it this way. My first company, I ran around with a lot of guys in Dallas that had other companies, and different types of companies, a couple guys that were in construction. And my big aspiration back then was to grow a big company, to be able to sit down with these guys and say, we're doing 30 million in revenue this year. We're going to, is all, what are you going to do this year in revenue? And I would intentionally look at other companies and compare ourselves to them. Right. It's kind of like, the whole social media thing today. It's like,
that's right. Yeah.
It's like, man, you can go see this shiny image of this other company that on the paper looks like, man, they're just killing it. They got the trucks, they got the nice office. There was a company in Dallas that I've really admired, and it was a cool story, called Rodman Excavating. And I don't know if you ever heard of them, but everybody thought Dennis Rodman, the basketball player, was actually aligned with them. It was an investor. That's not how the name of the company came about. Everybody thought that they named it after Dennis Rodman, but one of the first partners was named Rod, and Dennis Rodman happened to go live with that family while he was in college and invested in the company. But anyways, the point I wanted to make is back then, this was like probably early 2000s to right at 2008. You would drive around Dallas and Fort Worth. They had some operations down here, but you would see these badass Freightliner, I think they're Freightliner International, whatever, these big badass trucks painted red with shiny chrome, pulling all this equipment around like bulldozers and excavators. And like they always kept their equipment clean, and they had their name on the side of it. Yeah, they had a guy at their shop that would airbrush their name on it. I mean, dude, it was the coolest thing to see this anyways, Freightliner, 18-wheeler truck, shine, fire engine red, chrome, like, with all this big equipment. It's awesome. And I thought, man, that's so cool, They ended up going out of business with the 2008 crisis because they were buying all their equipment. They were taking loans and buying all their equipment. And when the bottom fell out, they just lost everything. Yeah. The companies back then that were leasing all their equipment were able to give it back and stay in business.
That's right.
But anyways, I've looked at other companies going, man, they look really good. And I've found where that's not good for me.
Yeah.
I learned this at Torchy's, when the company was growing really fast at Torchy's, we really didn't pay attention to anybody else.
Yeah.
Like we were so focused on the fundamental, like for us anyway, designing cool stores, building high quality stores, making sure that we were supporting the operations so they had a clean space and all that. I mean, our mantra was like, we wanted to build something that the operations team was proud to go work and live their life in, because they worked 80 hours a week in this space that we built. So if we knew if we got that right, they would feel better, they would perform better, they would be able to produce a better product and experience for the customers. And if you focused in on just that, the company's going to grow.
Yeah.
So we didn't watch anybody else really. I mean, there was other competitors out there, but we didn't pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the mindset I have today.
Yeah.
I try not to look at other big contractors or people bigger than us, about, how many trucks do they have or all the shit that looks cool. It's like, I'm going to focus in on, hiring the best people, making sure that we deliver the best projects, provide the best experience to the people we're working with, be upfront, honest, and just do the right thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. And when you focus on just that, it seems like the opportunity to grow and make more money, that's a consequence of it.
Yep.
Right. So I can tell you right now, I mean, we've got, Shree's going to come on our podcast here in a couple of weeks with Cadence McShane, which is a big company. And that's somebody who we would like to emulate. Like one day I'd like to be doing what they're doing, but I don't look at them going, well, I need to look like that today.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's more so the pathway and how they arrived at that point. Yeah. Right. And just understanding what that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm aware of other companies out there that do what we do. I don't know how big they are. I'm not interested in, what they're doing, how they're doing it. Maybe we should be. I just don't do it now. I don't worry about anybody else, whereas I used to, and that seemed to get me in trouble. So
yeah, I don't know if it's a sense of worry or understanding like the methodology in operation.
Yeah,
right. That's the thing that I'm curious about. Yeah. Not necessarily to try to emulate or mimic. It's more so it's like, oh, I want to understand opponents, right?
So what's a good example of another design shop architecture group that where you saw they were doing something differently than you and you guys wanted to adopt that? Or has that ever happened? Like tell me what, if you're going to watch your competition, like what are you looking for?
Yeah, no, it's never been about it's never been about the product, right? It's never been about the building, the shiny thing. Mm-hmm. It's more so the pathway to growth and trying to truly understand how to make architecture into a successful business, right? They could have a shitport, they could have a Dookie Brown building, right, and be the most successful revenue generating business in architecture, right? That's what I'm going to look at.
Yeah,
because I know we're going to produce good work.
Yeah,
like that's inevitable. That's just what's.
But what is something you've picked up from somebody else that made sense to you guys?
Well, to be honest, not a whole lot, because the things that I've picked up are not necessarily within the architectural community. It's talking to people, like it's talking to other businesses.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'm real interested now, and maybe it comes out in some of the conversations in terms of like, how does the business of architecture differ? And it's not, again, it's not the product that we deliver, but it's how we operate, and how do we forecast revenue? How does that differ from the next one?
Yeah.
Right. And it's those compare and contrast that I'm real interested in understanding. So, because I think that the business of architecture is and you've heard me say this a number of times, is stuck in a way that it's real, you can move the needle in terms of bigger projects, lesser overhead, more projects, more overhead. The number of, to move the needle in architecture means, I think, is that either your staff is efficient and it's mature enough in order to obtain a higher revenue generating project, right? There's that. Or you increase the number of projects that allow you to increase your number of staff, right? And so there's it's almost like playing with the numbers. This group of people, 40 hours a week is going to generate this much revenue.
Yeah.
So we bill out per time. We bill out time per month, and if we increase that time per month, whoever it is. There's a certain section of individual in terms of their hierarchy in the company that will make us more money, because they take less management, they can operate on their own, and they can run through projects pretty efficiently, right? That person is going to make us more money.
Yeah.
And so traditionally, I think that's always how it's been. And so
then the game is to, you've got to balance the number of projects that particular person is managing effectively, right? Where they're able to move through, because I guess you need them to move through and deliver the service or the product, which is a set of plans for, I know I'm oversimplifying that, but to deliver this set of plans, you need them to be able to move through that pretty efficiently.
That's right.
At the same time, deliver what you're promising the client.
That's right.
So then can a person manage multiple projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar with you.
Yeah.
We try to limit, depending on the size and the complexity, 2 to 3 per project manager. So, and we treat all of our staff, our employees, like project managers, whether they come out of school or they're 20 years into it. We try to operate in a similar degree in terms of, we expect you to be able to communicate, to produce, to design, work your way all the way through, and we'll help you through those complexities, and your brain will grow over time. So we're going to get you to this particular point. But I think that person that really understands the game, that can troubleshoot, that can have the hard conversations and not really back out of it because it's too hard.
Yeah.
And if you hear some of these words, we're not really talking about design at all, right? That's just comes in, the nature of how we work. So it's not, you can be more successful in the public side, in our, in the media, whatever you want to call it, because you're a better design architect. That doesn't mean you make more money. Right. In some instances, it does, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you make more money.
Yeah.
You could have a shit poor product that gets stamped out all across the world
Sure.
and make a ton of it. Right. So,
yeah, I was always curious about that. Because looking from the outside at different design firms and architecture firms, there's some of the ones that people talk more passionately about. They seem to be more expensive, right? So it's like, but I don't know that the design, again, and I'm not, from a creativity standpoint, I don't know if there's that much of a difference. But some of these groups have elevated themselves to be able to charge more fees, and it's almost like they become a brand.
Yeah.
And people are like, I always say it's like some people, and it's not the world that I live in with the type of projects that we do. Some people are willing to spend a premium to have a certain name attached to their product.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, we hired so-and-so over here. You know what I mean? And then there's the other path of being more of a maybe a production architect.
Yep.
I don't know which one's more profitable.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, and that's real true. Me personally, and I don't know if we are or not. I hope that we are gravitating to more of the brand identity. People seek us for what we do and how we do it, not necessarily to punch out work. So I think that you're absolutely right. The nature of architecture these days is, we know that it's a necessity in order to get things done, right? But you don't necessarily have to have the brand in order to get the thing approved, right? So that's a choice.
Yeah.
That's a choice that you make depending on depending on the brand, depending on your curiosity of architecture, depending on your relationship with that building, depending on the revenue that you're trying to seek or whatever your performance is. Like, all those things are dependent on who you choose and how you choose it.
Yeah.
And so additionally, like, how do you as an architecture, as a business, how do you base growth or profit on that bit of weirdness of choice?
I mean, again, if I put myself in your shoes, just again, not knowing the business that well, is it where you'd have a certain portfolio of projects that just pay the bills?
Yeah.
And then you'd have the other ones that you chase down that are more
absolutely
interesting, like the pitch.
Yeah.
That gets a lot more notoriety. And then that kind of stuff builds the brand.
Yeah.
But then you've got all the other stuff that's
absolutely
pays the bills, right?
Yeah. I think everybody does a little bit of that, whether they want to say it or not, or whether or not it shows up in their portfolio. We're always looking for those projects that we can feed off of, right?
Yeah.
That just are in the background grinding. Yeah. Funny enough, though, I would say that 90% of our work is work that we're going to photograph and we're going to showcase.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for those little nuggets of things, but that we could just say, oh, here's a standalone studio inside of our office is just punching stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work out revenue wise, because a lot of times those projects are small and fast, and so they're difficult to, especially in this atmosphere, they're difficult to center a team around when either you are not signed up for that annual bulk load of work, or that team is on a fringe, let's say, because that's not really what they want to do. They come to our office because they want to work on some bullshit.
Yeah. And
they're not necessarily there to just produce.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely a weird little thing to balance. Now there's some scalable projects that we have that that are allowing us to feed right now and work ourselves through this market that we're in, that I'm really grateful for. That I don't know if, I mean, you know, the scale of it is interesting, and it's something that we'll choose to put out there in terms of, yeah, we did this, and this, and it's new for us. It's a new product for us. And I think the office is pretty excited about the opportunity, not necessarily because it's going to be a high-end design product at the very end, but mostly it's a pretty large thing that we're working on that we've never done before, and we're at the seat, you know, making decisions in terms of how this community gets built. Right? It's some of those things that allow us to operate and then do the fun little things that may not make so much money.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are, I think you have to have those.
Yeah.
In order to, not necessarily lose money, but in order to allow your office, especially from a creativity side, to be valid in a way in this market.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't show people that you're producing this eye candy trophy of a project, then you're going to lose that face value of a brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to go identify those clients that want that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That is interesting. You know, we've had a couple, well, you know, the pitch was one of the projects that we did with you that the design, I think, obviously the budget and everything, schedule was important, but equally important was the design and the finished product.
Yeah.
You know, we mostly, besides that, we live in a world of everybody just wanting cheap and fast.
Cheap and fast.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not a great world to live in. Not fun. I mean, it's necessary, but yeah. I mean, there's similar to you, right? We're searching out projects that'll stretch us, that'll give us more experience, that'll give us, broaden our capabilities a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
But then we fall back on the old block and tackle.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Stuff that just pays the bills.
Doing what you know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then what percentage, that goes back to like, well, we're chasing down a few of these things that will take us a little bit out of our comfort zone to build more portfolio type projects. And then we keep a certain amount of just the easy stuff that we know we can do over and over again in our sleep.
Yeah. Have you, talking about, your staff and your team, have you hired in a way intentionally that has allowed a little bit more trust for you to sit back and pull the different levers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously on day one with Citadel, I was doing everything. And then day two, I got to hire somebody that would be in the field 100%. Because, you can't, it's hard to grow a construction company if you're always out in the field, I know a couple of guys that are buddies of mine that have been in business a long time, and they just, I don't know if it's they don't trust other people, or they can't see that they're not willing to take the step outside of, building a team and trusting them, but they're always in the field, and you can see where they're never going to get that.
They're limited.
They're very limited. Yeah. You can't do everything. So yeah, it's, I always looked at it like, I know what I'm really good at. There's certain things that I'm really good at and I enjoy doing. There's other things that I don't like doing and I can make it happen.
Yeah.
And there's just things that I'm not good at all. So, besides having field guys out there to watch the project, that was a necessity because I've got to step back and do other things. But then I knew when I started Citadel that one of the biggest things I was going to do, most important things, was hire somebody to manage the money. Yeah. Do the reporting, do the bookkeeping and all that, because I can do it. But I hate to do that shit. Yeah. I hate it. I like doing the estimating. I love doing the estimating. But the bookkeeping side of it, I don't like.
Yeah.
So I went and found somebody that I could trust. Yeah. And so that was a big lever for us. And then the next big part for me was I like doing the business development side. I like meeting with clients. I like strategizing and all that. So for me to really spend time on that, I can't run the day-to-day construction, right? I've got to have somebody that's going to manage the superintendents and manage and make the right decisions. And, I got really lucky with David. He was the first employee at Citadel.
Yeah.
And he's grown and become somebody that I really trust to make decisions. He's we think about things strategically really, really similar, but he compliments me in a way that is real interesting where, like we talked about before, building up thick skin to be able to have tough conversations. I can do that, but I fundamentally, I don't like delivering bad news. Yeah. It just feels weird. I mean, I've it's kind of like, you get used to jumping in an ice bath.
Yeah.
You never really like it.
Yeah.
But you can force yourself to do it every day.
That's right. Yeah.
I feel that way about having tough conversations. I love David to death, but I think he genuinely likes delivering bad news.
Well, he does it in a way where he's got some humor in most cases, right?
I mean, but he's, we've been on some calls where we knew there was something not so great that we had to report.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I do it, I'll find myself, setting it up, kind of setting the mood of like, okay, here's what happened. He just fucking barrels right on in and goes, hey, this is fucked up. But then it's like, here's what we're doing about it. Right. And sometimes it's, it's tough, but I like that. I mean, it's like, man, a lot of the times we have to rip the Band-Aid off pretty quick and let's get the issue on the table and look at it. And it might be a steaming pile of shit, but let's all look at it and decide how we're going to deal with it. So that was important, right? So, that was the key things for me is that, and now I'm thinking about, we're building up the estimating team because I can't sit there and if we're going to grow this thing now to the next level, I've got to be out talking to people and I've got to be out, being able to fly to Atlanta on a moment's notice to go meet somebody to put some deals together. So that means I can't sit in front of my computer and build out budgets. Yeah. So we're trying to build the estimating side now. We've got we've got 3 people dedicated to that now. And so now it's just, okay, we're going to keep feeding the machine and making sure that the team is able to handle successfully what we're going to put in it. And then that just goes back to fundamentals. There's writing schedules and, hiring the best people we can and writing good contracts and, doing all the block and tackle stuff that makes sure the project moves along successfully and protects us and protects everybody, protects the owners and make sure that we get to the finish line with a project that everybody's shaking hands and that we've made, money and the subcontractors have made money and, we hopefully haven't cost the owner, additional money that was unwarranted or anything like that. So yeah, like I said, we're at a point now where the team that we've got right now, I'm probably more proud of than any time in my career, and some of it you just kind of like, holy shit, I looked into that. Like I didn't realize that was going to work out as good as it did. Yeah. And then I think you wrap all that in culture. We're trying to build a culture that people are proud of, that they want to be there, they want to perform. They want to show up every day and be proud to put our gear on and say they work for Citadel. I think if you can build that, because I saw that firsthand at Torchy's.
Yeah. And that's the brand. That's the brand part of it.
That's a brand. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, here's the growth, man.
Yeah.
The hard thing about growth is there is no pathway. There's no real book in order to allow you to go from point A to B to C to D to all the way to Z. But the interesting thing is that there's curiosity, right? It is really understanding what others do and trying to pull those nuggets of information and then apply it in a way that hopefully makes you successful.
Yeah.
And a large part of this is that for me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there have been architects in my life that have been mentors, but I'll also say I've never really had a mentor. Mm-hmm. And so to learn from others is real critical. And all the time I do things the wrong way and then I'll pivot and do it the right way, hopefully, or somewhat the right way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
I think mentors are important. We've talked about that before, but you you can't read the biography of somebody and emulate everything that they did.
Yeah.
Everybody's circumstances are different. Same thing with like I said, I'm excited to have Sheree come on here, and I've gotten a lot of nuggets of wisdom from him, just, meeting with him a few times, but I can't go do everything that he does, because everything that he does and how he thinks about things in his company, that's not a formula that we could just overlay onto what we do. Right.
Yeah.
It's working with those people and taking those little nuggets of like, oh, okay, he said that. Yeah. I can put that little piece into my thing and it work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a good mentor, I think, is someone that will be a good sounding board.
Yeah.
Right. And whether it's just talking through an issue, giving advice, or just hearing you vent about something that they've already experienced, that's fucking key.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's invaluable.
So
very good.
Cool, man.
Well, there we go.
Episode.
This might be number 20.
Really?
Actually. Yeah.
I was thinking we should say what these are.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that coming over this morning. I was like, what episode are we on? Because we're getting up there.
This might be number 20. And I know that we could probably figure that out real quick, but
shit,
I know that we said that we were going to, yeah, probably had some candles and celebrate with some confetti.
By, yeah.
Well, this is where we talked about, let's get here and see kind of what happens, and I know for me, I look forward to this.
Yeah.
Whether it's just you and I, or we've got a guest. I think it's good just to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
And hopefully, somebody else would get some value out of it or appreciate, some things. But yeah.
I do. Yeah, I will be interested in the day where we're getting feedback in a way, whether it's, I don't know. I don't think I'm not at all looking for a pat on the back, or it's like, I'm just like, I'm curious if this is helpful in any way.
Yeah.
And I was real interested too when Delee came in and she was listening. She said, I listened to 3 of them, and it seemed like there were little nuggets that she got that were interesting in comparison to what she does, in terms of like, oh, they're talking about culture, they're talking about staff. That's not something that I do, but I appreciate that side of it.
Yeah, I would like to think that somebody like Delee would, if she agreed to come on and talk to us, and she went and listen to some of the previous episodes, that says, okay, she still wanted to come on and talk to us.
Yeah, I know.
Because she could have got on there and listened to 2 or 3 and said like, I don't like what they're talking about. It's not really worth me to go and sit down and have a conversation. So hopefully that means that, there was, she saw some value in that, and I think, she looked like she enjoyed the conversation,
and eventually we're gonna run out of friends or colleagues that are just wanting to come on because they know us, and then we'll get into a section of folks that are really like Delee, because I had never met her before, face to face.
I think a lot of that will come with just our, the more conversations we have, the more kind of library that we build up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, we've talked about the podcasts that I listen to that I enjoy the most are just guys talking about their craft.
Yeah.
They're whether it's Joe Rogan talking about comedy. I don't know anything about comedy, but it's interesting to listen to those guys talk about the intricacies of just that business. It's like, oh, what, you're listening to these guys talk about their craft, which I think is cool. Which was what we're doing, So I mean, and I think we've dropped some wisdom in a way that, if somebody's out there trying to start a construction company or an architecture firm, they're going to hear something that's like, oh, okay, well, that's what these guys did and how they thought about it. So anyways, good stuff.